I, female, 40, have been estranged from my family for the past 10 years, and it all started with my ex-husband, Mark, male, 43. Mark was my husband for around 5 years, and we dated for about 8 years in total. But before that, he had dated my stepsister, Cindy, 43, when they were in high school together. Although it's important to note that this was before Cindy ever even became my stepsister, and when they used to stay in a different state. It was a whirlwind high school relationship and ended before my mom met Cindy's stepdad. Mark and I met shortly after I went to college, and he didn't even realize the connection until we were in a long-term committed relationship. It didn't influence him that much at first, and to him, it was just a funny coincidence. However, it slowly came to light that Cindy had never properly gotten over their relationship. Like, it was painfully obvious the first time Mark was introduced to the family that she still had feelings for him. And this messed up our whole family dynamic. My dad had never really been in the picture, and I was raised by my mom. She did her level best to raise me, and I'll always be grateful to her for that. However, we never came from a place of luxury, and to be honest, we never had any savings. My lifestyle and mom's happiness changed quite drastically when she met Gabriel, my stepdad. He was a walking green flag, it seemed, and came from a very well-off background. They began dating when I was 14. I was introduced to Gabriel and his daughter Cindy when I was 15, and I immediately took a liking to both of them. Gabriel was warm and caring, and Cindy was almost like the eldest sibling I never had. Of course, sometimes it would be tough, and I think Cindy and I struggled to adjust a little. My mom, in particular, started giving a lot of attention to Cindy, which made me a little jealous, and I used to act out. When I grew up a bit, I thought it was just because I had been used to being an only child, and now we were part of a blended family. Our parents got married when I was 17, and things were just looking up. In fact, Gabriel, upon moving in, sat us down and talked about sharing a future and asked me what I wanted to do with my life. I had always been passionate about fashion ever since I was a kid, and I told him I wanted to work in fashion. He saw my work and my previous projects and immediately told me that he was giving me a no-condition sum that would go towards a college course in fashion design. I was ecstatic and humbled by how sweet he was, and worked super hard in college and started a super successful boutique as soon as I graduated. I met Mark as he was a customer at my boutique. But Mom never liked the fact that Gabriel had given so much money to us, as it almost felt like her pride was hurt. In very mild ways, I think she also began to bond more and more with Cindy and with Gabriel. However, we all still had respect and love for each other. Back to the shit show, though. Whenever Mark and I visited my parents, Cindy would also inexplicably be there. I was annoyed at first, but never doubted Mark's loyalty. She didn't ever flirt with him outright initially. However, after we got engaged, things got worse. At our engagement party in 2008, Cindy got drunk and cornered Mark and stated he picked the wrong one. However, since this happened in an isolated area and Cindy claimed she doesn't remember any of this, people were divided on the issue. Nevertheless, I trusted my husband's complaints and told Cindy she wasn't invited to the wedding. My mom and stepdad were shocked and disappointed, but eventually understood where I was coming from. Surprisingly, Gabriel was quicker to see my point of view than my own mom, who still thought Mark was overplaying what had happened. After the wedding, the only time we ever saw Cindy was at family events, and she was never invited to our home. Anyways, we got married and the marriage sailed smoothly for the first 2 years, and then Mark got distant. He was always busy with work or traveling, and we rarely had time together. After a few rounds of relationship counseling, I was hoping things would get better. One day, though, everything came crashing down when my husband said he was taking a business trip to Colorado. Cindy was in Colorado as well, and my old insecurities came back. I decided to snoop a little, and I found that my husband was logged into 2 Facebook accounts on his laptop. One that I knew of and another that was friends with Cindy and texted her. They had been having an affair for months at that point, and there were even, nudes on my husband's laptop. I immediately confronted him and kicked him out of the house and called my parents, telling them what had happened. My stepdad was disgusted at what Cindy had done, but my mom tried to play the role of peacemaker, which I honestly did not want at all. She even dared to say that I should just let it slide because Gabriel's side of the family had provided me with so much opportunity. I mean, what? My stepdad didn't even think that way. It was just my mom, and she messed up her perspective on owing people. Things got messy. I divorced Mark and Cindy, and he ended up getting married just a year after the divorce. I had been NC with Cindy for a while at this point, but I made it clear to my parents that I would not condone them going to Cindy's wedding, and that participation in that icky relationship would mean that I cut them off too. They both agreed to not go, but to my surprise, Gabriel gave me a call on the day of the wedding. He said, "Listen, hun, in good conscience, I can't keep this from you. Your mother, she's gone to the wedding. I think she was hoping that she could just lie and enjoy both things. I mean, it hurts for me to not go to my own daughter's wedding, but she has hurt my other daughter." This felt so nice to hear. Two, and that makes the decision easy for me. I thanked him for his honesty and told my mom that she could spend her days with her preferred daughter. She was shocked that I had found out, and it eventually came out that it had been Gabriel who told me, which caused their marriage to become super rocky too. I was NC with Mom and Cindy, but spoke to Gabriel quite frequently. It's been 10 years, as I said, and my life is in a pretty good place. I'm single. I genuinely can't handle the trauma of relationships right now and haven't found the right guy. But I'm otherwise super happy. Gabriel and my mom got divorced 5 years after I went NC with them, and she's living a mirror image of his life, as she keeps in touch with Cindy. I guess this whole set of circumstances made me realize family isn't based on who birthed you, but on who sticks by you. Anyhow, what I'm trying to say is that things reached a certain place of stability. That is until Gabriel called me saying Cindy had shown up on his doorstep all of a sudden, begging to be taken in and also to speak to me. She had a suitcase with her and looked like she'd been traveling for days. Despite his misgivings, Gabriel took her in and asked me to come over as soon as I could. As much as I would have liked to never see her again, I wanted to know what had happened and, well, whether she was okay. I didn't wish harm upon Cindy. Come on. I went over to Gabriel's house a few days ago and got a look at my stepsister after 10 years. My visit there was insane. Cindy told me the craziest story ever, and you all need to hear it too. She told me that Mark had ended up cheating on her with my mom. I was gobsmacked. This dynamic was dysfunctional AF. And apparently, Mark himself had gotten bored of Cindy, but she was too in love to notice and kept compromising to keep him in her life. He had multiple affairs, but she lived with it until he made a move on her, stepmom. While she was telling me this story, I was finding it hard to show any sympathy for her because, to be honest, she deserved it. This is karma, nothing else. However, she seemed to think that we now had a shared experience of being jilted by the same man, and that would help us heal. I made it clear that I was not willing to open the door to her and said, "Cindy, you are like family to me, and because of you, I have gone through heartbreak and trauma that I wouldn't wish upon anyone. Just because you reap what you sow doesn't mean that I will look past what you did." She was emotionally distraught by this, and I think she expected us to make up. Her life was in tatters now. Her stepmom and husband, again soon-to-be ex-husband, were living together in the house she was in a few short months ago. She had sacrificed her career to be with Mark, and due to that and a lot of poor financial planning, was almost penniless. I left Gabriel's house shortly after that and decided that I didn't want anything to do with her. Gabriel called me and said that he respected my decision, but also informed me that he'll let Cindy stay in his house for now, at least until she gets to her feet. I feel like I might be TA if I tell him that I would not be okay with this, but on the other hand, if he doesn't help Cindy, nobody will. What should I do at this point? Update 1. I read through a lot of your comments, and while I was initially thinking of delivering an ultimatum to Gabriel, I have since found a compromise. I don't want to lose the only parental figure in my life, but I wasn't comfortable interacting with Cindy. I told him this and made it abundantly clear that I wasn't going to interact with my estranged stepsister under any circumstances, but I wanted to keep my stepdad in my life. Gabriel said he's fine with that, and on his end is trying to get Cindy sorted out and moved into an apartment so she can live independently. Although it's been a few months since my stepdad and I agreed on the compromise, Cindy has been hell-bent on trying to reach out to me. Gabriel actively stops her from knowing my address, etc. But she still blows up my social media. I've blocked her for now, but she keeps making new accounts. While she's been staying at Gabriel's place, he has tried his level best to ban this kind of activity, but that's tough to enforce on a 43-year-old. She's also not working hard to find a job or become independent, and although her divorce has gone through and she gets alimony, she needs to step up and get moving. Update 2. Things came to a head recently because Cindy tailed Gabriel one time when he visited me, and that's how she ended up at my house, begging for forgiveness again. It was a completely psychotic move. This was the last straw for me, and thankfully for my stepdad too. He apologized to me and immediately told Cindy to hit the road. I filed a restraining order just to be safe too. After that, she left Gabriel's house and hasn't contacted me since. NAH, between you and Gabriel, everyone else involved is insane. I get why he wanted to give his daughter a second chance, and he chose you over her when she was beyond help. Opinion 2. NTA, and kudos to you for being mature and understanding why your stepdad might want to help his daughter. It did seem like a sketchy situation, but it would have worked out if Cindy just understood that she wasn't entitled to forgiveness from you. Next story. Throwaway account because people in my life know my actual Reddit. Basically, I grew up with and still have a mother that constantly would send "we need to talk" texts with no context. It was usually about something simple, but how am I supposed to know? I get a "we need to talk," and then I spend the rest of the day anxious that something life-changing is going to happen, and then she just tells me something light. If I reply asking for a sentence summary of what it will be about, I get nothing, just "we'll talk." So I hate it. My boss does this shit. My ex-girlfriend did this all the time. My boss would send "we need to talk tomorrow" and wouldn't give me a hint, so I'm anxious all night. I hate it with a passion. How hard is it to say "we need to talk about" one sentence summary? One sentence and I get good sleep at night. I don't just lie there thinking a family member died or someone has a terminal illness or they're upset with me. Recently, I saw online a post saying something like, "Next time someone sends me 'we need to talk,' I'm replying 'yes, we do,' and not explaining anything, so now we're both sweating." So I started doing this. My sister sent me the "we need to talk," and I knew if I asked for details, I'd get nothing, so I just said, "Yeah, we definitely do." And when she asked me, I just gave her the vague-ass answers I'd usually get. I did it to my mom a few times, and each time she would keep texting me, and I'd reply vaguely, like she does. Then she'd call me and ask me what I needed to talk about, and I ask her what she needed to talk about, and she'd say a quick summary of what it was, and I'd just say, "Is that so hard?" After a few times, she says I'm being a jerk and causing her unnecessary anxiety. LOL, ironic. She says it's manipulative and I'm messing with her head. I've done it to my sister a couple of times, but she caught on and doesn't do it anymore, but still called me an a-hole. My mom seems to not learn and just keeps doing it. But I'm at the point where I'm just not trying to deal with it anymore. Is it immature? Yes, but it works. My sister thinks I'm being an a-hole. My mom does as well. My girlfriend understands why, but thinks it's kind of a-hole-ish of me. NTA, your mom can dish it out, but can't take it. She's been learning stuff her whole life. She can learn to explain herself. Next story. So I, 30, female, have a little girl, 6, female. I grew up in an environment where every mistake was punishable. Dropped ice cream? No more for the rest of the month. Accidentally broke something? Grounded. When I had my child, I swore I wouldn't punish her severely unless it was very big. So my sister, 34, female, lost her job, so I opened my door to her and her son, 7, male. It's been going pretty okay, but I recently noticed how whenever her son would make a mistake, he'd act like it was the end of the world. For example, he and my daughter were playing tag in the house, and they accidentally knocked over a vase. I heard the crash from my office at home, and when I came, my nephew started bawling and saying he was sorry. I asked him if they were both okay and told him that next time don't run around in the house. He looked at me in confusion before running off when he heard his mother coming. I thought that was really weird, but shrugged it off and cleaned up the mess. So last week, I took the kids to the park and my sister tagged along. I bought some ice cream for both of them and watched them while they played. I needed to go to the bathroom, so I asked my sister to please watch the two of them while I was gone. She obliged. I came back and my daughter is crying. Her ice cream is on the ground and my sister is yelling at her, while my nephew is also crying. I ask what's wrong, and my sister tells me that while running around, despite my sister telling her not to, my daughter dropped her ice cream. My daughter then said that my nephew was chasing her with a worm on a stick, so she was trying to run away from him. I checked up on her to make sure she hadn't hurt herself before exploding on my sister. I yelled, saying she had no right to yell at my child while she said she was making sure my daughter didn't grow up to be a brat, seeing as I didn't punish her. I told her I make sure my daughter learns from her mistakes and only discipline her if it's warranted. I then told her to leave my house, to which she did the very next day. Now I'm getting messages from my family asking me how I could turn away my sister and her son when they had nowhere to go, and I'm heartless. I feel really bad since her son did nothing wrong, so AITA? Edit. To some of the questions. Yes, I've talked to my sister about her parenting before, and she didn't want to hear it, so I butted out. My daughter has never broken a vase before. It was raining, so they couldn't play outside. It was a one-time thing, and I did discipline her by not letting them go to the park. I rearranged the day. My sister and her son are not homeless. They are now living with one of her friends. I know my daughter was telling the truth because I've raised her not to lie, and my nephew admitted to me he was chasing her with a worm. I kicked her out because she was yelling at my child. This has happened once before when my daughter dropped a cup when trying to pick it up, and my sister yelled at her. I told her not to yell at my child, and she agreed. I'm on thin ice with my sister, so right now isn't the best time to bring up my nephew. However, the kids still talk over the phone at night, so that's progress. I've sent my sister a message wanting to talk. She's coming over this afternoon. Update. So, a lot of drama has happened these last few days, so here's an update to you all. First of all, thank you for all the advice and helping me with my decision. I understand with the ESH and YTAs that kicking my sister out was harsh, and I do need to talk to my sister about her parenting. So, I met with my sister in a coffee house, which was very public and open setting. I sat her down and told her that yelling at children for a simple mistake was wrong and that she needed to tone down the yelling. She started to protest, but I stopped her and said that to help her with no yelling, I wanted my nephew to live with me for a few days every week. I said that if she disagreed, I would call CPS and take her son away. She sat down and begrudgingly agreed to let him live with me for 2 days every week. He is now living with me and everything is going great. I signed my sister up for anger management class, which was part of the deal if she doesn't want me to call CPS. Thank you all for your supportive comments, and I bid you all a great day. NTA, you're doing right by your girl and you're breaking the cycle of abuse, which I can personally attest is extremely difficult to do. Your sister, on the other hand, is continuing the cycle, and her poor wee guy sounds terrified of her. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.